guys, it's Kevin back here in the woods this morning, and I want to do a follow-up on the last handle video. But before we get into that, I want to get one thing out of the way. I am not an expert. I've never pretended to be an expert. I hope I haven't come off like that. But in order to get that out of the way, I think we need to go to the classroom. So let's talk epistemology. Epistemology is the philosophy of knowledge. And as far as I'm concerned, there are really only two ways we can know something. Of course, these categories could be branched off, but the first is through direct experience, and the second is through secondhand experience, handed down throughout time. So let's take the latter first. Secondhand knowledge would be knowledge that you either receive orally or in some sort of written form. So we have traditions that have been handed down to us in both ways. Some have been written down, some have been told to us over time. So we get oral history from our parents or from our friends or from the sources that we trust. We listen to them and then we repeat it. We get written knowledge, of course, through history books, through science books, through philosophy books. Anybody who's ever written anything down with any intention can be taken as secondhand knowledge. I'm less interested in that, especially in the sort of acts arena, than I am in firsthand experience. That would be experimenting or observation and then using deduction and reason. So basically a sort of scientific method where you start out with a hypothesis, maybe based on secondhand knowledge, and then you go out and you experiment. And if your experience tells you something, that I think is better knowledge than secondhand knowledge. Now, of course, you could argue that our senses can mislead us, and that's true, but I think that it is less misleading than secondhand knowledge, especially in today's world where it's hard to trust any sort of oral or written tradition. So anything I communicate to you on this channel with any degree of certitude, I promise I am communicating to you not out of secondhand experience, but out of my own practical observations and experience in the woods using these tools. Whether it be axes or knives or any other outdoor hobbies or any other things we might talk about on this channel, I mean to talk about them out of a degree of first-hand knowledge. That's my own personal, practical experience and observation out here in the woods. So let's put that to rest. Not an expert, but everything I communicate is meant to be my own personal experience. And if any given time my experience out here or my experiments dictate something contrary to my general working hypothesis, I am allowed to, and hopefully mature enough, to change my mind. How it goes with the axe, felling with an axe, isn't it? You hit and it doesn't seem like you're getting anywhere, and then all of a sudden you're halfway through. I have to fell here from my offhand side because of the brush on the other side. Note the lack of fluidity in my swing. It just feels awkward and unnatural. I hope to get better swinging offhanded. Felling specifically, limbing's not that bad, but felling offhanded just feels damn awkward. That was the little Holtzbrook's first tree. Yikes, what a mess. There is one other thing I wanted to mention related to the handle follow-up, and that is that trees are not homogeneous. And that's not to say that ash is different than hickory and hickory is different than osage. Of course they are. I mean that all hickory is different. So every piece of lumber that you get for a handle blank or a handle replacement is different. I think that matters a lot more than grain orientation or runout.
So this is an example of what I would consider pretty bad runout. You can see the grain is less than a 45, but you can see the grain runs straight through the handle, but it starts to twist off to this side. See how it twists? And it runs out. And because it runs out this way and twisting this way, you're going to have runout on the other side too. That's runout, boys and girls. So the other thing I do is that I keep all my handles and handle blanks next to a dehumidifier. And you can see here, I am spoiled for handles and handle blanks. That way, when I go to hang them, I know that all the moisture is out of the handle, the eye is as small as it's ever gonna be, and when I soak it in linseed oil, it's only gonna get bigger and never smaller. And I've never had an axe that I hung come even a little bit loose, and I attribute that to the dehumidifier.
So for you grain guys out there who still insist that that grain must be straight up and down or damn close to it, you're paying for it and you're making the rest of us pay for it. Think about it. When you take a tree and you think about the growth of the rings, how many boards can you get where the grain runs perfectly vertical with no runout through the tree? Not a lot, which is why axe handles got so expensive more recently. And that goes back to my epistemology point. I think it's largely because about 5 to 6 years ago, the guys on YouTube, and I won't mention any names, but they were merely repeating what they heard without ever putting it to the test. When you put it to the test, I don't think it matters that much. So if you still want that vertical grain, fine, but you're going to pay for it, and you're making the rest of us pay for it too. So I want to pick up on the straight versus curvy handle now that I've got some comments in. And I want to add that, yes, during the colonial times, you find mostly straight handles. But I don't think that's necessarily because they were the ideal handle shape, but more because it was the easiest shape of handle to make. Think about it. The curvier the handle, the more wasted wood you have. And cured wood was at a premium in colonial times. It was also just simply more easy to make a straight handle with primitive tools. They didn't have bandsaws like we have now to cut that shape out. That would have been very difficult with like crosscut saws to cut out. So I think that alone explains why we find straight handles in the colonial period. I realized after I made the video that I pretty much just glossed over, almost sort of did a hand wavy thing to the slim versus fat handle debate. That's because I think it's more or less settled. Among guys who chop, your experience will tell you that you do need to seriously slim down modern handles. I would even say you would have to slim down vintage handles to make them chop without hurting your hands. This isn't a matter of being tough. This is a matter of hickory being a very stiff wood. 8th grade me. This is why I'm experimenting currently with other woods. We want something that's a little bit whippy, but will also tolerate the impact that a striking tool requires. So, how thin are you going to make them is going to be up to you. I think it's actually more comfortable to hold something thin because I can really grip it well. And when I swing the axe, I'm pretty much letting go of the axe at the point of impact so that my hands aren't strangled around it, receiving all that impact. However, if you're only splitting with an axe, yeah, I can see some degree of merit in arguing that maybe you would trade off a little bit of that comfort for durability. While I'm thinking about it, stop oiling your handle so much. If I have to pick up one more sticky axe handle, I'm gonna throw it in the friggin' woods. I oil my handles twice, then I go use them. After that, maybe once a year is all you need. Put on a third coat after this one and see if it's not just sitting there on top when you come back. Bet it is. Stop oiling your handles so much.